scientific studies were central to his activity, and that the anatomical drawings in particular are of such quality and such sustained brilliance in some ways that Leonardo deserves to be thought of as one of the great scientists of the Renaissance.
For over 500 years, one of Leonardo da Vinci's sketches has remained a mystery. Da Vinci is one of a long line of artists who have told us, beginning with the ancient Egyptians and running through the early Christians and Tibetans, that art is a medium, a conduit hidden in plain sight among his countless notebooks. At first glance, it looks like a tangle of wheels and gears, just another of his curious inventions. He fancied himself an engineer before he fancied himself an artist, and the evidence is in his drawings. It gives you an idea of his prescience, in other words, his ability to predict almost the future. But historians have long whispered that this particular design was different, something he never spoke of, something that could change how we see his genius. Thanks to a new kind of scientific investigation, we are now able to get inside the painting and understand how Leonardo was working to perfect it over a long time, 5, 10, even 20 years. It's something truly specific to Leonardo. Recently, new examinations of the pages have brought the drawing back into the spotlight, hinting at a purpose that could rewrite history. What exactly did Leonardo imagine? Let's find out. When people think of Leonardo da Vinci, they imagine flying machines, anatomical drawings, and paintings that still dominate art history. What often gets overlooked is that buried inside his notebooks are pages that hint at something much stranger. Among the thousands of sketches he left behind, there is one that researchers describe as a collection of interlocking wheels, levers, and rotating mechanisms. It can be found in Codex Madrid, a collection of his sketches now kept in Madrid. At first glance, it looks like the inside of a clock, but when studied more closely, it suggests an entirely different purpose. Leonardo worked during the late 15th century, a time when mathematics was a skill mostly reserved for merchants, engineers, and scholars. Every calculation had to be done by hand, and mistakes could be costly. Traders keeping track of goods or engineers designing bridges had no tools to assist them. The idea of a device that could perform calculations was centuries away, at least according to the official timeline. Yet, in his notebook dated around 1493, Leonardo outlined what appeared to be a machine with several gear-driven wheels arranged in sequence. The sketch includes small annotations in his famous mirrored handwriting, and although not all of it can be clearly interpreted, parts of it have led experts to suspect that it was not a clock or a toy, but something far more advanced. The drawing shows 13 connected wheels, each marked with numbers from 0 to 9. These wheels are linked by a series of gear teeth so that turning one affects the next. In modern terms, this is the same principle used in mechanical calculators hundreds of years later. Each wheel seems to carry over its movement to the next once it completes a full rotation, the foundation for addition and subtraction. What makes the story even more fascinating is that Leonardo never built a working version of the machine, or at least, none has ever been found. He filled notebook after notebook with inventions ranging from practical to visionary. Many were never tested, yet this one drawing stands out because of how detailed and precise it is. Unlike some of his more imaginative designs, the proportions and gear mechanisms here actually make mechanical sense. Historians who have studied the sketch argue about what Leonardo really intended. Some suggest that it could have been part of a project to explore ratios in gear motion, something he was deeply interested in. Others point out that he labeled certain components in ways that resemble counting or tallying functions, which is unusual for his mechanical notes. There is also the issue of secrecy. Leonardo often wrote in code and used mirrored text, not only to protect his work from theft but also to conceal ideas that could be considered too radical. A device that could, in theory, perform calculations automatically might have been viewed with suspicion during his lifetime. After his death in 1519, Leonardo's notebooks were scattered across Europe, with many pages vanishing for centuries before being rediscovered. For centuries, the sketch in question lay mostly forgotten, overshadowed by his more famous inventions. But in recent decades, it has drawn renewed attention from historians, engineers, and even computer scientists. They see in it the possibility that Leonardo envisioned a tool that could lighten the burden of calculation, a task essential to trade and engineering in Renaissance Europe. Yet this is only the beginning. What lies behind that deceptively simple set of wheels and numbers would eventually lead to a revelation that researchers in modern times would struggle to interpret until they employed AI to scan it. The idea of a machine that could handle numbers mechanically did not appear in history books until the 1600s. Long after Leonardo's lifetime, scholars began experimenting with gear systems to relieve people of the slow, error-prone process of manual calculation. The first known attempt came from Wilhelm Schickard, a German professor who in 1623 built what he called a calculating clock. His machine used rotating wheels to add and subtract numbers, though it was destroyed in a fire soon after completion. 2 decades later, Blaise Pascal created a more refined version, the Pascaline. Built in 1642 when he was only 19, it performed additions and subtractions through interlinked gears. A few decades later, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz advanced the concept further, demonstrating a device that could multiply and divide. According to mainstream history, these names, Schickard, Pascal, and Leibniz, represent the dawn of mechanical calculation. By the 19th century, Charles Babbage expanded the idea with his difference engine and analytical engine, now considered the ancestors of modern computers. But the question lingers, if all of these innovations belong to the 17th and 18th centuries, how do we explain Leonardo's sketch from over 100 years earlier? For centuries, the sketch wasn't included in the technological timeline. That changed in the 20th century when researchers began systematically cataloging Leonardo's manuscripts. In the 1960s, a team of Italian scholars built a physical model based on the sketch, and to their surprise, it worked. The gears carried over numbers as predicted, producing a functional calculator capable of basic arithmetic. This raised uncomfortable questions. If Leonardo had already conceived the principle in the 1490s, should credit be re-examined? Some even called it a forbidden invention, not because it was hidden on purpose, but because it disrupted the comfortable narrative of progress. What made it more mysterious was that Leonardo's design appeared at a time when there was little practical need for it. Europe still relied on manual bookkeeping and abacuses. So why would he sketch such a thing? Some believe he stumbled on the idea while experimenting with gears. Others think he was exploring ways to minimize human error in engineering. The rediscovery of the sketch sparked debates about Leonardo's place in technological history. If his design had been built and shared, mechanical invention might have advanced by centuries. Instead, it lay dormant, leaving others to claim the milestone. This tension between official timelines and Leonardo's evidence fuels modern speculation about lost or ignored knowledge. Leonardo's mysterious sketch never quite fit neatly with his other works. His bridges, weapons, and water-lifting devices all had clear purposes. But this one, a gear-driven device with numbered wheels, seemed to belong to another world. No written explanation, no surviving prototype, only a drawing. Replicas were later built, some functional, but uncertainties remained. Even a tiny error in interpreting his lines could change how it worked. The result, too advanced to ignore, too incomplete to confirm. Leonardo's notebooks were never meant for public release. After his death, they scattered into private collections and remained hidden for centuries. Only in the modern era were the pages catalogued and studied in detail. Even then, access was limited, and scholars often worked from low-quality reproductions. Many believed there was more hidden beneath the surface, something invisible to the naked eye. That changed when AI entered the picture. Recently, researchers applied advanced scanning and artificial intelligence to the surviving manuscripts. These 500-year-old pages were carefully digitized using high-resolution imaging before algorithms reconstructed faded ink and erased strokes. The purpose was simple: to reveal what the human eye missed. What emerged was shocking. The scans revealed a precise, complete layout, 13 numbered wheels interacting perfectly, showing that Leonardo's design was not theoretical, but functional. It was, in essence, a fully operational calculator conceived in the 15th century, predating all known mechanical computation by over 100 years. But there was something darker. The scans also uncovered sections that Leonardo had intentionally obscured, lines scratched out or overwritten. It seemed he had tried to conceal parts of the mechanism himself. One insider suggested that Leonardo may have realized the disruptive potential of a machine that could perform calculations without human effort. At a time when knowledge was power, automating it might have been seen as threatening. This interpretation is theoretical, but it fits with Leonardo's reputation for caution. He often encoded his more radical ideas, and in some cases, he withheld inventions altogether if he feared they could be misused. If he had recognized that his machine could reduce the need for human calculators or shift the balance of knowledge in unexpected ways, it is possible he chose to leave it incomplete. That choice would explain why the sketch stayed buried among his notes, completely disconnected from his other projects. Regardless of Leonardo's intentions, the modern reconstruction changes how the machine is seen. Until now, replicas were built on uncertain guesses. But with the enhanced detail revealed by AI, the design appears mechanically sound. Gear ratios line up correctly, the carryover system is clear, and the numbered wheels suggest deliberate planning for arithmetic functions. What once looked like an unfinished doodle now reads like a working blueprint. The implications extend beyond historical curiosity. The discovery means that the timeline of computing must be revised. Instead of crediting the early 17th century as the birth of mechanical calculation, the true beginning might belong to a Renaissance artist and engineer in the 1490s. That shift not only elevates Leonardo's legacy but also forces scholars to rethink how advanced ideas could emerge centuries before society was ready to adopt them. Still, the report stops short of claiming certainty. Not all experts agree that the reconstructed sketch proves Leonardo intended a calculator. Some argue the annotations remain too vague, and others caution that AI reconstructions can overinterpret faint marks. The lack of a surviving physical model means doubt will always linger. Yet, even with these caveats, the discovery has unsettled many in the academic community. The possibility that a fully functional calculator was hidden in plain sight for centuries has been enough to send ripples through the worlds of history, engineering, and computer science. And that is where the story takes a sharp turn. What began as a dusty sketch in a Renaissance notebook has now become, through digital eyes, a revelation that challenges the foundation of technological history. The machine Leonardo once hid may finally have been exposed. And the question now is not whether it existed, but what it means for us today. The shockwave. The news of Leonardo's hidden invention spread quickly, and the reactions were anything but quiet. Historians, engineers, and even tech leaders began weighing in. The idea that a mechanical calculator complete with numbered wheels and a carryover system had been sitting in Leonardo's manuscripts unsettled many. For centuries, the narrative of technological progress has followed a steady arc, from Pascal's 17th-century machines to Babbage's analytical engine, then to modern computers. But now, this timeline was no longer clean. If Leonardo truly conceived a calculator in the late 15th century, the history of computing would need to be rewritten. Universities scrambled to respond. Some scholars called the AI reconstruction convincing and credible, noting that the consistency of the wheel design and the ratios made accidental sketches unlikely. Others were more cautious, pointing out that Leonardo's notebooks are full of imaginative devices, many of which were never intended for practical use. Yet, even skeptics admitted the scans raised uncomfortable questions. Why were parts of the drawing deliberately obscured? Why did Leonardo himself seem to bury the design among unrelated notes? Meanwhile, in the engineering world, the revelation caused a different kind of stir. Designers and programmers saw the sketches as proof that the core idea of computation was imaginable centuries earlier than thought. It was like finding the seed of a digital revolution hidden in the Renaissance. One engineer remarked, "The fact that Leonardo seemed to anticipate principles that would not be formalized until much later stunned those working in technology." The discovery blurred the line between art, science, and foresight in ways that modern specialists were still struggling to process. The public reaction was equally intense. Media outlets ran headlines that mixed awe with unease. Da Vinci's calculator could have changed everything. Was the first computer hidden for 500 years? This is terrifying. On social platforms, debates erupted about what might have happened if Leonardo had built the device. Would Europe's scientific revolution have come faster? Could early banking, navigation, or astronomy have leapt forward centuries? Or, as some argued, would society simply not have been ready, leaving the machine forgotten until later? Since Leonardo often worked under patrons, rumors spread that perhaps some inventions had been quietly suppressed. Officially, no evidence supports this, but the whispers added fuel to the fire. Some suggested that the very act of Leonardo scratching out his own notes reflected a conscious decision to keep knowledge locked away, fearing what might happen if it escaped into the wrong hands. This is where the story took on a broader weight. The rediscovery was not just about one machine, it was about how humanity handles knowledge that seems out of step with its time. Do we embrace it, risk the disruption, and reshape society? Or do we bury it, letting centuries pass before tools like artificial intelligence finally pull it back into the light? By the time the initial wave of shock had settled, one truth was undeniable: Leonardo's sketches were no longer just curiosities in a notebook. They had become a catalyst for rethinking innovation itself and a reminder that the past still holds secrets powerful enough to shake the present. The debate. If Leonardo had completed the machine, how might the world have changed? Could automated calculation have arrived centuries earlier? Could complex engineering, trade, and scientific computation have been accelerated? Insiders note that given the Renaissance's social and technological context, a working calculator might have seemed magical or dangerous. Leonardo may have intentionally left his design hidden, encoded in cryptic notes and mirrored script, fearing its potential misuse. This tension between genius and caution is central to the machine's story. On one hand, it demonstrates human ingenuity at its peak. On the other, it reminds us how knowledge can remain dormant, waiting for the right tools and perspective to unlock it. Modern imaging, AI reconstruction, and careful analysis finally allow the design to be understood in ways that would have been impossible even 50 years ago. The rediscovery undoubtedly invites reflection on how many other inventions and ideas may have been overlooked, lost, or intentionally hidden. Leonardo's sketch is a symbol of the unseen potential within the archives of the past, a reminder that human knowledge is often deeper and stranger than we assume. For the public, the discovery is both thrilling and humbling. It challenges our assumptions about progress and innovation and forces a reconsideration of the story we tell about human ingenuity. Ultimately, the mechanical calculator is a monument to curiosity, experimentation, and foresight. It reminds us that even ideas left incomplete or hidden can reshape our understanding centuries later. The machine itself may never have existed beyond paper, but its impact resonates today, inspiring new generations of engineers, historians, and thinkers to look deeper, question assumptions, and explore the boundaries of what was thought possible. Do you know any other invention with an interesting story behind it? Let us know in the comments.